Coming up on Be Kind, Let's Rewind.
Today we're doing part one of our Eddie Murphy in the 80s tribute.
Hey, you! Yes! Yes! You too!
And when he stuck his foot in, he screamed, and he kind of sounded like James Brown when he did it.
Yeah, so he's meshing Richard Simmons and Little Richard together.
And Little Richard, yeah.
Good darling, Miss Molly. You look like a hog.
Good old Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood.
This is how you answer a door in my neighborhood.
He said that he found like a listening device, like a bug in his bedroom. He didn't know who put it there, who was listening. He's like, but all they heard was a lot of
4, 3, 2, 1.
Cue music.
It's my house. You know what it is? And if you don't like it, you get the fuck out.
Welcome to Be Kind, Let's Rewind, the nostalgia podcast no one asked for, with your hosts, Chris, Leaf, and Chadwick.
That's right, from Kansas City. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Be Kind, Let's Rewind, the nostalgia podcast no one asked for. Today we're doing part one of our Eddie Murphy in the 80s tribute.
So I messed up. Shut up.
We wanted to do just
Wait, I thought we were doing the Notebook.
and it's all over. Yeah, man, when we started digging into Eddie Murphy in the 80s, we were like, this is probably going to be a two-parter. So we went ahead and grabbed on with our little two-part episode. So, Chadwick, you're obviously the leading Eddie Murphy fan on the podcast. We've reviewed a couple of movies because of your suggestions, which I'm very happy of.
Never heard of her.
Who told you to cover up?
So this one was fun, man. I got to do a deep dive and found out a whole bunch of shit I had no clue about Eddie. Ezzy, as his drunk dad calls him. Ezzy. So anyway, where do you first remember hearing about Eddie Murphy, guys?
Man, it was Saturday Night Live for me, man. He was a staple in our house. Like,
oh, that's right. You had the older brother or older sister, and then your probably your parents too.
My parents too. My mom and dad really loved Eddie Murphy, like from the very beginning. They obviously were more conservative, so they didn't really prefer his stand up as much. But yeah, it wasn't for that. Wasn't the unfettered profanity was not for them. However, like all of his appearances on Saturday Night Live and a lot of the skits he did, they were instant fans of his and. His movies too. Mine
was probably just the movies, like probably the late 80s, early 90s. Chadwick, wasn't your dad a fan of Eddie?
Yeah, I'm going to say probably Coming to America was my introduction to Eddie.
What a great way to start.
And then I had to retro back and watch the stuff on SNL later on because at that point I'd already missed it. Yeah, I mean, and that's pretty cool. Like, you could share that with your dad. Like, anytime I tried to hang out with my dad, he would just tell me to go back downstairs. But that led me over to
Get out of the street, you fucking bum!
That's what my dad said to me.
Repressed memories of the week.
Oh, man.
Get out of the street, Eddie.
Yeah. Ezzy. So this week, I got some fruity little vitamin water from Costco, and I was like, you know what'll go great with that? Vodka. And guess what? It does. So got me some Grey Goose, poured a couple little shot skis in there, and dude, I'm rocking and rolling. It's pretty good. Probably gonna lead me over to.
Sure is. Could you get me another drink?
So, I can't wait for part two where we're all just hammered. And nobody knows what's happening.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to take it easy tonight, so I'm staying away from the liquor. I was trying to think what would I drink in the early 80s, and I came up with PBR.
Nice. Pabst Blue Ribbon. I thought you were going to pull out a cup of breast milk.
Breast milk, you made my day.
Leaf, bring us home, man.
Dude, I'm doing a little bit of a Moscow Mule. I got the ginger beer right here in this little glass, man.
Nice.
It's not a
got a copper rim.
It's not the right. It's not the whole tin cup, but
it's good
copper
enough,
cup.
man.
Dan,
but before we get started, guys,
what is a copper rim job?
it's well, if you got to ask for it, you can't afford it, big man. So before we get started, guys, remember to like, subscribe, hit us with that 5-star on Spotify. Also wanted to announce our rewinder of the month this week. Our buddy John T. I'll put his picture up here where he had his Alf sign, definitely repping the nostalgia at a WWE event.
Go, John T.
Dude, John T. always freaking helps me though, man. With all his he's an '80s all-star. He also even corrects us when we're like, I wonder what kind of car that is. Like, I'll get a text when he's listening to the episode, like when we were talking about Stallone's car. He was like, yeah, it was a Ferrari, blah blah blah, or whatever the hell. And I was like, damn, John T. our car expert. So anyway, John T. congrats. You get $0 of prize money and a high five from us. So that's about it, man.
John T., can you tell me what kind of car Eddie was driving in 48 hours?
There we go. John T. Well, he'll be on it, and we'll post it on social media, man.
Don't cheat.
Oh, he doesn't. I mean, it's from the top of his head. I'm telling you, man. It's pretty fucking wild. He's a car buff for sure. But also, I saw on YouTube we have a thanks button now. Thanks button means that you can click on this button and basically give us money to bring Gibbs back. So if you find it in your heart to donate money to bring Gibbs back, do that because we're in debt now. We had him on so many times in a row. So,
all proceeds go to Gibbs.
Go to Gibbs. And, of course, don't forget.
In a row?
In a row. Don't forget Z-Biotics to help you from stewardess have another drink. Hit it up at zbiotics.com/be kind. And with that, guys, let's get over into our topic.
Good morning, my neighbors! Hey, fuck you! Yes! Yes! Fuck you, too!
Eddie Murphy in the 80s. Now, this was, again, we knew who Eddie Murphy was, but I didn't know the depths and the run this dude had through that decade in the 80s, from 80 to 89.
But also the impact that he had. He completely changed Hollywood.
Like, I don't think that we're ever going to see something like that again. Not in a decade. And we didn't before that. I mean, me and Shadwick talked off air about it. We said, maybe, Chevy had a pretty good, but like Eddie's singing, he's doing TV, he's doing movies, he's doing stand-up.
I think I can't be a pilot. I can't be a doctor.
And he got such a young start, too. Like, that's what blew my mind. It's like how young he was.
Signed at SNL, and we'll get into it. But SNL, he was 19, when he was on SNL.
So he started, I want to say he was 15 when he started doing stand-up.
Yeah.
And there were some pretty funny things. I can't remember now the name of the place, the comedy club where he worked out, but there was one time Rodney Dangerfield was in there, and this was before SNL. So Eddie does his bit, and afterwards Rodney's like, "Hey, you're pretty funny, kid, but you're too dirty, you got to lay off the language. Don't say that N-word so much. People don't like that, So then he gets SNL. He does his Raw stand-up. He does a couple of movies, and he's at some kind of event. This is like mid-'80s, and Rodney's sitting like a couple seats down from him, and Eddie was telling the story. He's like, it was like a long joke because I look over at him, and he goes, hey, who knew?
Like 5 years later, you remember? Or actually, probably 7 or 8.
Yeah. God, so clever, man. Rodney Dangerfield, dude.
Shout out.
Legend.
Leaf, man, do you have some boring ass facts to kick us off with his early ons?
No, it's boring.
I do, man. I do. Obviously, Edward Reagan Murphy, born April 3rd, 1961, American actor, comedian, singer. Had his breakthrough as a stand-up comic before gaining stardom for his film roles. And, of course, is pretty much widely considered to be one of the greatest comedians of all time. His movies have grossed, let me find that fact. His movies have grossed over Adjusted for inflation, $6.5 billion.
And he had a monster. I mean, as big as of course the '80s run, nothing's ever going to touch that. But his '90s run wasn't bad. Like you had all the character movies like Nutty Professor, and
he had a resurgence. In the '90s.
Bowfingers.
So he said that he thinks that he thinks that the Nutty Professor was his best acting that he did in a movie.
It was I maybe, but you knew
the characters.
You knew they all were Eddie, but like in Coming to America, I argue that like there were some characters that he's playing like I didn't fucking know that was Eddie, until you kind of like do a double. Even the singer, like
Randy Watson.
Yeah, Randy Watson.
For Jackson Heights own Mr. Randy Watson. Yes.
Randy Watson.
I mean, the makeup was great on that. So.
And Reverend Brown. 2 years for the Reverend. This man's been my Reverend since I was a little boy, and I love him dearly.
So his early life, Murphy was born, obviously, in Brooklyn, New York City. Raised.
Brooklyn.
I was born in Brooklyn, okay? My accent's the fucking Brooklyn accent, okay?
Raised in the borough's Bushwick neighborhood. His mother, Lillian Murphy, was a telephone operator, and his father, Charles Edward Murphy, was a transit police officer. And amateur actor and comedian, assumedly. Maybe that's where Eddie got some of his inspiration from his father. But he didn't. Unfortunately, his father was murdered in 1969.
Yeah, man.
And which is
was he like 8 years old?
He was just a kid. Yeah. I mean, he was quoted as saying, "My mother and father broke up when I was 3, and he died when I was 8." So I have very dim memories. He was a victim of the Murphy charm. He joked. A woman evidently stabbed him to death.
Jesus.
A jealous lover.
Man, and Eddie tried to get every woman back in the 80s because he was just stabbing.
Dude, he was.
He took revenge. So,
he said, I know I'm kind of jumping around, but he said that he found like a listening device, like a bug in his bedroom in the 80s. And,
I don't doubt it.
And he didn't know who put it there, who was listening. He's like, but all they heard was a lot of fucking.
Man. And so he actually attributes, obviously, a lot of his dim early life memories to why he's so funny. Yet another case of somebody with a tragic life who ends up being like a hilarious actor and comedian.
Turns the negative into a positive.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so from then on, obviously, one of his biggest influences, and I don't know if you're about to go into this, but was Richard Pryor.
Yeah.
You listened to one of his comedy albums, that In Words Crazy is the name of the album, Richard Pryor.
I've been meaning all week to see if I could find that to listen to it.
Yeah.
Apparently there's a bit on there about a wino talking to Dracula.
Oh, nice.
He's like, why are your teeth all fucked up?
Dude. So that was the beginning of his sort of his career in stand-up comedy. I guess he sort of, Richard Pryor was the one sort of like his ideas.
He said that he listened to that album like hundreds of times and before he ever started to try to like emulate it.
Well, just ingrained at that point. I mean, anybody that's done any impressions, like me and Leaf have done some shit here and there, and even Shadwick, where it's like you listen to somebody for so long, you don't realize you can do the voice. You may just be drunk one night and it slips out, and you're like, "Oh, that's fucking good, dude."
Unfortunately, I'm not drunk enough yet. I think my Rodney gets better
as you get drunker.
Yeah,
nice. Well, let's go ahead and kick off. Like Shadwick said, he started off doing stand up around like 15. It was funny. There's some stories about these clubs just. They're like, I forgot what club he ended up going to. They let him just be raunchy and as dirty as fucking he wanted to be. And he would just go there as a kid, underage, but they would just let him like go in. But that he started doing, I guess somebody from SNL saw it. They gave him a shot in 1980. And I didn't realize this because he was 19 years old. But they have somebody go warm up the crowd before like they even start like dress, I think. So like, they have somebody kind of go up and do like a stand-up routine and all this shit, right? So he was doing that for a little while and was not on the show very much in 1980. It was him and Joe Piscopo, who was seemingly joined to his side throughout this entire run, which they say like Joe was kind of like looking after him because he's like a young kid or whatever. But they, I don't know, I don't get a great vibe from Joe just because Phil Hartman's.
Okay, cut it, print it, and ship it. I'm buying that one.
Frank Sinatra was better, but well, that's something to talk about a different time. But they did a purge after the 81 season, or the 80 season, 80 to 81, I think. And Eddie and Joe were all that was left. And then that was when, right around the time Dick Ebersol took over for Lorne. This was like 1 year after Lorne had left. But anyway, Dick Ebersol was like, saw Eddie doing that warm-up shit and was like, we got to get this fucking kid on and get him on now. And Dick Ebersol was the one that came up with the idea of the recurring characters. He was like, hey, if a character hits, that character needs to be on. Like, so for Eddie, I think it was like Buckwheat and Gumby, and they were alternating him like every fucking other week.
Yeah.
And so like that SNL book that I read, I think it's called Live from New York, Saturday Night, something like that. It was, they said the writers were like, Eddie was so brilliant. He would come in, again, dude's like 21, 20. He would have an idea. He would have an impression, all this shit down to a T. And all they're basically doing, they were like, one of the writers said, all you had to be was a stenographer. So you're just like writing what he's telling you.
So when he was working at the comic strip in New York, the guy that owned it, Richie Tienkin, I believe is how you say it. Mm-hmm. He was the guy that owned the comic strip, and he told Eddie, "Hey, SNL is looking for a black guy." And he's like, I think you should go try out for it.
Yeah,
and that guy ended up being his manager.
Okay, yeah, because I remember Eddie told, because Damon Wayans, and we'll get into the Keenen Ivory Wayans relationship later on, but like Damon Wayans, when he got the SNL gig, Eddie told him, you better write your own shit. They're just going to stick you as like random black guy parts. That's like what's going to happen if you don't write your own stuff. And Damon didn't write his own stuff, and guess what? Didn't last very long, half the season.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So like I said, Eddie was they had a writer's strike right after Eddie kind of started getting a little bit of screen time, and I think that's what Ebersol says. I think Eddie, I forgot what skit it was. It probably was Buckwheat or Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood or some shit, right? Like, so it hit, and they're like, okay, so Eddie has got to be, we got to start featuring this dude. And they were like, we'll alternate every other week or whatever. So I just kind of wanted to briefly go into some of these legendary skits and talk about how these fucking skits influenced other people. So when I'm watching this Eddie Murphy, and even some like, we talked about it off air about Gilda Radner, there was an In Living Color skit that just straight up fucking ripped off a Gilda Radner skit, like verbatim, like a giant kid. There's so much shit from Eddie Murphy that was ripped off on Saturday Night Live, and I don't know if like Keenen Ivory. This was before Keenen Ivory Wayans though. Some of this shit, but it's like the it's in his stand up, but it's your mama's got a mouth in the back of her neck and bitch chew like this, like.
Mama got a mouth in the back of her neck, bitch chew like this.
Right.
So you know what's funny? I know you guys don't like the show, but New Girl, it actually has one of the weigh-ins on it.
One of the Wayans.
I guess one of the sons.
It's Damon Wayans. Yeah, it's his name.
Damon's Jr.
Damon Jr.
Right?
Yeah.
There's a part where the white guy, Jake Johnson, he's trying to do an Eddie impression, and he's doing that bit about the bitch chew bubblegum like this.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, man, that ain't it. And then Wayans does it and sounds fucking just like him.
How long have you been standing there?
Right around. Your mama got a mouth on the back of her neck, and the bitch chew like this. Now that's Eddie.
I don't see the difference.
Hercules.
Oh yeah, I'm sure, dude. Like, which grew up,
which is like full. Yeah, it's like full circle.
Yeah, dude, 100%. But all right, man. Before we start diving into all these the skits, man, wanted to go to shit stuck in my head this week. As we're recording this, we just lost Gene Hackman, legend, all-timer. So just wanted to pay my tribute. And as always, you guys know, these famous actors are in these like blockbuster movies, and then some shitty movie they're in is the one that I pull a quote from. So with that, let's take it over to Coach Jimmy McGinty.
Coach McGinty, what will Washington need to get back into this ball game?
Heart.
I'm sorry?
gotta have heart.
Can you elaborate on that?
Miles and miles of heart.
Miles and miles of heart, Mr. Gene Hackman.
Cheers.
Brother.
Cheers.
And we'll see you on the other side. And let's bring it back up now by going to... Ow! Too hot. This goddamn hot tub that everybody else has done that I'm sure every white person has tried to do an impersonation of at nauseum. This skit was funny as fucking shit. And so the writer, it's the guys that did Coming to America with him. Is it Blaustein, Barry Blaustein and David Sheffield, I believe, are the two that they were writing with him at SNL. They came up with this skit, I think, because he could do like this James Brown impression, and he was like, "It's not," because the guy Blaustein, I can't remember which one it was, but he was in a hot tub and he was like, "It's fucking hot," and when he stuck his foot in, he screamed, and he kind of sounded like James Brown when he did it, and then so like his brain just went off on this whole fucking, and Eddie's like, "It's not funny," and so they were like, he's like, "Just try it," and then so it ends up being this fucking iconic skit. Just goes to show you, man, sometimes every idea you think is what's up, like it's not, man. That James Brown skit, and throughout this, I'll put like clips in here as much as we can get away with. But goddamn, it was perfect. It was the perfect fucking James Brown, which you find out too with all these stand-up comics. When you see him on SNL and you see him on In Living Color, you find out like all these bits are shit they've been doing for fucking years.
Yep.
And then you finally see it on a TV show or on their stand-up. Dana Carvey's one of them. He auditioned with that broccoli song, the chopping broccoli. Like he auditioned with that. That's in his stand-up. That's on SNL. He's rehashed that like 3 or 4 times.
And the more you think about it too, is the reason that happens is because these are like, well, especially stand-up comedians, these are jokes they've honed. That they know they've tried out a lot of times on audiences or their friends, and they know it
talked
hits.
About that before.
Yeah, every single time they've studied
and that James Brown shit comes back into his movies like a decade later, probably.
Yeah, I know. Like it's just funny, and his stand up version is like way funnier to me than this skit. But it was just kind of out. Again, it's an outrageous concept, and comedians talk about this. Tracy Morgan was doing an interview on him, and he said that Eddie taught him to commit, and that was like the big thing, which is funny because Eddie played Tracy Morgan in that SNL that just happened. But
you gotta have a lot of money if you're gonna live like I live. I eat 4-cheese lasagna.
And he was fucking great.
Oh, he's great. Someone fixing to get pregnant up in here. But yeah, man, he said that like he would just
4-cheese lasagna.
he was like Eddie committed no matter what he did, and if you commit, then it's funny. Like either it works or it doesn't. If you half-ass that James Brown, it don't work, But that skit probably. I mean, every comedian they've interviewed on any documentary I've seen on Eddie, they're always like hot tub. Like it's like one of his iconic ones. But the next one that they talk about is good old Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood.
It's one hell of a day in my neighborhood. A hell of a day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine?
It's my favorite.
And this was my dad's favorite too.
Well, out of that best of, I gotta say that's my favorite,
dude. That shit, and there's several of these like that you have to go like dig to find because Lord forbid Lorne Michaels gives you anything like easy at your fingertips in this digital age. But like, yeah, like his freaking Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood, like he's like, this is how we answer the door in my neighborhood. Like,
this is how you answer a door in my neighborhood. Who is it?
Like just screaming or whatever.
So for the uninitiated, the skit is about. It's basically a playoff of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Yeah, so it's a total parody.
Yeah, it's a total parody, and of course Eddie Murphy is black, and he's in the ghetto.
What if Mr. Rogers lived in the ghetto as the apprentice? Right,
yes,
black and lived in the ghetto.
Right, and that's it, and it's hilarious, of course, because he has to survive. Like I'm pretty sure I can't remember which skit it was, but like one time, like he robbed like some lady's shopping cart. And she was like, he was reading her receipt or whatever it was. Like, yeah, dude. Like,
did he have a dog in one of them? And he was like, "Can you say ransom?" Like it's like somebody's small dog.
Yeah, he's gonna turn it back in for the reward later.
The one I watched is where his landlord comes, gives him an eviction notice, and he's walking back by. He's like, "I did have money for that rent, but then my wife showed up in a brand new dress."
Want to see that dress now, boys and girls? See the footprints on it?
He holds up and it's got his big fucking footprint on it.
Shoe print on it where
he's like,
I ain't take it off for to do that neither.
Dude, so
God, bro.
Mr. Rogers, Mr. Fred Rogers apparently was not a fan, and that's why it didn't run longer than it ran. Is I think they were going to get a cease and desist if he didn't. So if they didn't stop or whatever, but I was like,
so
on,
funny
Fred.
though. Come on, dude.
Man. And so this next one is again another iconic one. It's Buckwheat.
Boy, it been a long time since them days. Hi, I'm Buckwheat. Remember me?
Aunts Tice.
Aunts Tice. 3 times I made it.
3 times a
That's
day.
a lady. And so for the premise of this skit, it's Buckwheat from the Little Rascals, but he's grown up. And he's still
Jesus Christ. And he still talks like
and
that.
They do the like they show the pictures of like the original like Little Rascals, and it shows the original like Buckwheat.
Yeah.
And then it just like morphs
when
into
it
Eddie
pans into him with the same look and the same
that big ass grin.
dude. Hair, dude.
Now that's something my dad, he would always go, "Oh, Tay."
Yeah, dude.
Oh, Tay.
Dude,
I think he might have texted that recently.
Like, dude, so on SNL, you have to people like when you write out a skit, there's people that gotta like type it in for cue cards and shit. And this one of the writers was like, "You knew a skit was good that like when you were like just typing it out, you started laughing," and it was like the spelling of Aunts Tice. Like,
oh
and
man,
they have that one in there where he's doing all this shit.
It died, dead a diver, then on the died, it died. Many days behind.
And he's singing one song, and then it's just like 6 question marks come across the bottom because it's like a him singing an album is supposed to be like what this is.
Yeah.
And that shit got me so fucking hard. Like when I went back and watched this again, but like I was like, holy shit. So the story to this one though, man, he's filming Trading Places, and he calls the writers, and he's like, "We have to kill Buckwheat." And they were like,
right,
this is huge. Like, this thing's getting over it. And he was like, every fucking time I'm in public, somebody's like, fucking do Buckwheat. Like, I'm sick of it.
Can't take it,
I'm
man.
fucking over it. Like, we got to kill him. And then that goes to the killing Buckwheat, which we'll get to in just a little bit further down. But it's just funny to me.
Just
that he's
in,
like,
Buckwheat, dead.
Like, but they keep... Like, the thing was so popular that he couldn't even, like, walk down the street anymore without people being, like, yelling Buckwheat at him. Because, again, Dick Ebersol knew. He was like, we'll do Buckwheat this week, like, Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood, then Buckwheat, then, like...
Even when he was walking around in his leather outfits?
I guess, man. Because he was filming... This one he was filming Trading Places. So, like, which we've covered. And
so he's already done Delirious at that time.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think it was Delirious, and then 48 Hours, and then
it would have been right around the same time because Trading Places came out in '83, and that's when Delirious came out. But I don't know when they filmed for Trading Places, and I don't know when they filmed for.
He said that he actually was a very big Elvis Presley fan, so he really did like walk around the streets wearing those leather outfits.
Well, one of the writers is actually who introduced him to Elvis. Like they were hanging out at SNL, and I guess they were listening to like a certain album or some shit that he was like. I mean, I guess he'd heard of him or whatever, but they were like actually sitting down listening to the albums and shit.
Yeah.
And then introduced him to that style, like where he had the leather and all that shit on. But but man, yeah, Buckwheat, a freaking all-time great. This other one too reminds me. You can see like little bites from Chappelle in this one. The undercover white person.
Finally, I was ready.
Yeah. The complete white face that was definitely bit on by the Chappelle Show quite a bit, and other people in that shitty movie White Girls. Sorry, Wayans brothers. I love everything you do with that. That movie is ass, and I don't know why people are like, "No, it's really funny. Have you never seen it?"
Dude, people love that movie, like
why?
a certain group, and I don't understand why either. It's not funny.
Well, like, every one of them's mom has a fucking mouth in the back of their neck and bitch shoot like this. It's not funny. Man, that Undercover White skit was funny as shit, and it was shot really well. And it's just to think too, this is like 82, 83, right? Because Chappelle did this, and it's funny as shit when Chappelle did it too. Yeah. But it's just the whole premise is like
it's white privilege basically.
Yeah, exactly. And so was he in like about to buy a magazine or a newspaper, and the guy's like,
"What are you doing?"
"I'm buying this newspaper."
"That's all right. There's nobody around. Go ahead, take it."
Nobody's around, just take it. Yeah. Like with the implication or the the implying that like when black people aren't around, white people just get a bunch of shit for free and like
steal. It's fun.
He goes to the bank and the loan officer is black, and he's telling him that he can't help him because he doesn't have a job, he doesn't have income, whatever. And another white guy, like I guess the manager, comes up and he's like, "I'll take care of this one.
You go to lunch." Yeah.
So the black loan officer leaves, and he's like,
"That was a close one."
It certainly was.
We don't have to bother with these formalities, do we, Mr. White-Eye?
and it's
that was funny, but to me, the bus ride was the funniest part.
Oh, when they all like it turns into a cocktail party, like when the black dude gets off.
It's like the Roaring Twenties in there, like.
Dude, that shit was so funny. And
everybody's like,
yeah, dude. The cocktail waitress sitting on his lap and everything. Like, but it ends with, he's in the there's a bunch of makeup chairs or whatever, and he's like,
"Don't be too sure. They might be black."
And it was just they all have that like one slice of makeup on.
Yeah,
like it just that skit. I'd never seen that skit, and that shit was funny as fuck. But that leads us over to
where you never need get up again, because in 6 short weeks I can train you to be a high-paying hoe.
Mr. Velvet Jones, Leaf, which took roots in SNL for fucking sure. I remember seeing characters like this all over SNL, like the pimps that do. David Allen Greer played one. What was the custom built condom? Do you remember that shit? The custom built condom.
That's why I'm here to protect you with the Luma Simmons custom built condom.
And it's in SNL or in Living Color totally bit this one, but Velvet Jones is basically a pimp, and he's helping people. Like it's like an infomercial, right? So he's helping people, find a job. Do you want to you can make $500 without even leaving your bedroom or whatever.
Yeah. It was like the Velvet Jones School of Technology.
Yeah.
But it's just him like showing you how to like pimp
out and shit.
Pimp out.
Dude, that shit was so funny. But again, I got to find it. Loomis Simmons. That was the name of it on Living Color.
That's it.
Loomis Simmons custom, same fucking voice. Side by side them. But they're definitely biting each other on this one. But that shit was pretty fucking. I want to be a hoe. It was like the name of the program. But it's like throughout this too, like I said early on, man, Joe Piscopo is just kind of joined at Eddie's hip, and I guess there was beef, man. Later on, I've heard beef because Joe was doing the shit where he would do interviews and he would all the time be like, "Yeah, I was hanging out with Eddie Murphy," and I was hanging out with Eddie Murphy, and then Jay Leno was like, "Oh, that's great. What are you doing later on?" But
my mistake.
My mistake. But yeah, so I guess Eddie got mad because Joe was just making it sound like they were best friends and shit, and Joe was like, "Hey, I fucking helped you out. Why don't you throw me a bone?" And I think that's kind of where they fell apart. But before that, we have the Frank Sinatra, Stevie Wonder, and this is where you really start to get Eddie's singing chops when he's doing Stevie Wonder. Like,
yeah.
The ebony and ivory
God damn.
One of his favorite, like, dude, you could him doing it like
Are you ones doing Stevie Wonder? That shit ain't funny, man.
You're from a stand-up kid.
I'll fuck you up.
I'll fuck you up. So it's like the whole premise is Sinatra. So I heard like a bunch of background on this. Piscopo, again, got the buy-off from the Sinatra family to do this impression. And he would do shit. Everybody, the writers fucking hated him because he would be like, they'd be like, oh yeah, we're at like, Carnegie Deli and blah, blah. And he's like, Frank Sinatra wouldn't be at Carnegie Deli. Like, and they're like, oh, okay. And then so he was on this skit. They were like, so Frank's in the studio, Frank's waiting for Stevie Wonder to show up. And he's like, Frank wouldn't wait for Stevie to show up. And they're like, it's a fucking comedy skit. Like, what are you doing?
Dude.
Like,
I knew the name Joe Piscopo.
Yeah, me too.
But I didn't know in what context I knew it. Like, I didn't know he was an SNL guy. I thought he was like a mobster or something. It was just like a name.
Same
that I'd heard
in the back of your head somewhere, but yeah. He was pretty popular. I mean, around this time, like he had his heyday, but I think a lot of that was, him being attached to more talented.
He did.
On this one.
He did have a funny line in this though, where so it's supposed to be Stevie Wonder doing Ebony and Ivory.
Yeah.
And he says.
And when I think Ebony, I think of a magazine that most people do not buy. And when I think of Ivory, I think of a soap that floats.
Yeah. There's this. I love this skit, and the song's good. But the thing that stood out to me was like Eddie actually like singing like Stevie Wonder, where you're like, oh goddamn, like. And there's they actually had Stevie Wonder on the show when Eddie was still there. And so you get kind of them singing together, which is pretty fucking awesome.
That's a good skit too.
That is. It's a great skit.
Where, like Eddie's supposed to be a
record producer or something.
Record producer, yeah. And
Stevie's playing like a nerd or something.
Yeah, Stevie's supposed to be doing an impression of Stevie.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, that's not it. And then like Eddie starts singing. He's doing his great impression.
My shady more distant as a Milky Way.
Right.
And like showing Stevie how to beat
Stevie.
And then Stevie like breaks into it and he's like, yeah, it still sucks.
Yeah, dude, and that's actually this is kind of where you see in that skit you kind of get the bridge of an impression and an actual artist. Even with the audio we have back then, you can feel the power in Stevie's voice compared to the power in Eddie's voice, where you're like, God damn, like Stevie got some power behind those lungs, man.
He has some chops for sure.
Yeah, you impressed me. Take the wheel for a little bit.
What's the one? This one was the improv one where he was Shabazz K. Martin, where he's just
the Black History Month thing.
The peanut butter story or whatever. But I mean, it's kind of whatever. But when he fucks up and then he does the improv.
A black man named George Washington Carver developed a new method of soil improvement through crop rotation. So I messed up. Shut up!
I have that written down.
You better stop clapping. You made me smile. Like that shit.
That's exactly what I have written down.
Yeah, like that's what I got out of this one. I was like, God damn, that's pretty on your feet thinking, man. Which shows you like somebody doing. Again, this dude was doing stand up, which is not quite improv, but it's kind of in the same boat. But how many stand up comedians fucking choke on that shit? And Eddie was like by himself on stage. 21 years old and just like fucking laughing and making a joke and just going on.
You can see him in the stand-up, his stand-up routines. He works the crowd so good from start to finish, and like he just knew how to perform. He was just like this natural performer. And a lot of people on Saturday Night Live, I hate to say this, but I mean, you guys can, you know who I'm talking about, like specifically, but you can name people on Saturday Night Live. They were really good writers, but you know, they didn't really have like the acting chops. They didn't really belong in front of the camera. Yeah. And Jimmy Fallon, I'm literally talking about you. I'm literally, you're
Look,
awful.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. He'll appear now. I think he's on those. He's making that fuck you State Farm money.
I think it was Ari Shaffir on his new special. He said that like Jimmy Fallon's tombstone is just going to say replaceable.
See, that makes me feel better. What I said wasn't nearly as savage as that.
Jimmy Fallon's what happens when you order Adam Sandler on Temu.
I ordered the Sandman. What the fuck is this shit?
What the fuck is this shit, man? We'll gloss over this one because it was I like the premise, the Little Richard Simmons show, so it's Little Richard.
So I wrote that one down too because when it first started, I'm like, oh, this is just not my thing. But then I would listen to the lyrics.
When he's like making
this one part where he says, I know a girl named Daisy. The girl is fat and lazy.
She got blubber to the east and blubber to the west. The bitch got long and flappy bread to the
I like the making fun of the cameraman in this one, and then the
good darling Miss Molly. You look like a hog.
It's so fucking just juvenile and stupid, but it got me.
So he's meshing Richard Simmons and Little Richard together.
And Little Richard, yeah.
And
he does that great little like that fucking look to the camera or whatever, his hands on his hips, like the Little Richard looks.
Come on, everybody.
Yeah, it's so fucking good, man.
Eddie Murphy, and I'm sure we'll get to it in a stand-up when we talk about that, he loved roasting gay people. Like, he loved it, dude.
You know, you tell somebody to be liberal with, like, the Parmesan cheese, you would have had a plate of fucking Parmesan cheese as liberal as he used that word. So.
Go back to the 90s.
Go back to the 90s, man.
Go back to the 80s.
Dude, so... Well, I want to end with the Buckwheat was shot thing, just because I got a couple of stories on that. So let's start to wrap up his SNL run. Again, this was from like 80 to 84. And so the last year of SNL, because 82, 48 Hours comes out. He actually had to host in 82 because, what was the dude's name that was the lead?
It was Nick Nolte. And
Nick Nolte was supposed to host, and Nick Nolte got sick. And then by other reports went to rehab. Other reports he was out partying super late and was hungover. So take whichever one you want out of that one.
Allegedly, that's ignorant.
But Eddie stepped in and hosted the show as a professional that he is when he was 21 fucking years old, covering for grown ass men that don't know how to handle themselves.
We need to touch on Gumby.
No, we are. I was going to, but I was going to say the last season that he was there on SNL, like he's about to leave. They offered him, I can't find an actual like documented number, but it was an assload of money because he's getting paid millions. And he had him over a barrel and he knew it. So he was like, he asked for whatever he got, they gave him what he asked for. There's 20 shows in a season. He was only there live for 10. And then they pre-taped like 15 skits to sprinkle through the rest of the season, which is pretty fucking smart. So that's
they got their money's worth.
But they're like, well, we didn't like advertise it like Eddie was going to be there. We just and I'm like, he's in the cast. Like if you bought a ticket to SNL in 84, you're going to assume fucking Eddie Murphy's going to be there. Yeah, I would have been pissed if I got there. And you get the pre-taped skit, but anyway, so Gumby, which led him over to some characters in Coming to America.
Imagine him telling me where I can park and where I cannot park. I'm Gumby, damn it! You don't talk to me that way.
Obviously, but Gumby was a Jewish actor that was a has-been. Like it's Leaf, tell what it's based off of. Like it's just the character, like the green fucking Gumby.
Yeah,
a claymation.
He's just like a claymation. It's not even really a cartoon, right? Like, yeah, it's like this. And he would just go on all kinds of like wild adventures. Like, it was for kids basically. And so Eddie Murphy basically puts his, adult-oriented spin on this specific character as he does everything. And to me, it is in the same vein as Buckwheat. Too. Yeah. It's like what or Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood. It's just like, what if the character was black and from the ghetto and just rough around the edges and taking something that is generally innocent and sort of like defiling it. And like now that I think about it, I guess I can kind of see why Mr. Rogers was kind of mad because he was like, dude, this is like my character's for kids, and like you're making it like, but that was the joke.
This was like he was based off of I guess Robert D. Walk was his first manager.
Yeah.
or one of his first managers.
That I didn't know.
He was based off of him and a guy named Pat Cooper that was an old Jewish comedian. So so this character, it's basically like he's a has-been, and he's meeting up with his like Jewish friends at a fucking deli or whatever they're doing. And sometimes they had fucking Pokey show up, like, and the costume is goddamn ridiculous.
It's so bad. It's so bad, dude.
It's just like a vinyl, like.
It's massive.
It's a structured like vinyl suit, like a mascot suit, but it's cut out and his face is painted green. But the one I watched from the best of was where he meets all the old Jewish guys in that restaurant, and they're trying to order these like specifically named sandwiches.
You know how long it's been since I had a Maury Amsterdam sandwich? It's been a long time.
Oh yeah, man.
But what I noticed out of that, one, Billy Crystal was in it.
Yeah.
Which I can't believe I forgot that he was on SNL, because Billy Crystal is basically, his voice is my inner monologue.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but he actually was part of one of the groups that saved SNL. It was him, Martin Short. They started bringing in like known actors and shit.
Yeah, Martin Short was in that skit too. But Billy Crystal, his outfit in that skit is almost exactly the same as Saul in Coming to America, the old white Jew in the barbershop.
Oh shit, yeah, it is, man. Good call.
Oh my god, nice.
I'm Gumby, damn it.
Taste the soup.
Aha!
It's
the same voice.
It's exactly the same, but it's fucking hysterical, man. Leaf, do you have any thoughts on this Gumby skit? Anything jump out to you on this one?
Man, no, like, it's just, dude, every time he did it, it was always hilarious. And I remember, like, even, I don't know if it was when he came back to host at one point in time, but he, like, had, like, this, like, bow tie on. And
as Gumby?
As Gumby, yeah. It was like this red bow tie. Like, it was just, the whole thing is just ridiculous, man. And Eddie Murphy has a way to
make it funny.
To just make something ridiculous.
Because,
like,
I mean, the plot is just, it's just old Jewish dudes being old crotchety men is all it is, but then you throw this. Instead, you throw this fucking Gumby suit on with a green face, and it's like comedic gold. And he's like, everybody's forgot who he is, and he's fucking mad about it. Like, I'm Gumby, damn it! Shouldn't have to pay to park. Like,
what? Like, is he the one that came up with this skit? Because like, how do you breathe life into something this insanely stupid?
He had the impression, I know.
Yeah.
I'm not. I think that he collabed with these people. I don't know who came up with the hey, we'll just make it Gumby.
Yeah,
but like
why Gumby?
He a lot of times they said he would come into SNL with impressions, and he would just be like, how can we incorporate this into, you know, a skit? Or a lot of times, like I said earlier, he would come in with the full fucking thing, and you just gotta like be a stenographer and write down what Eddie tells you and be like, okay, cool, design this set, let's go. I'm Gumby, damn it. But we'll end his SNL run, man, with this Buckwheat was shot.
Hey, Mr. Wheat! Yes!
And like I said earlier, like I said earlier, Eddie was just mad. He was mad because he was like, I'm tired of fucking people yelling Buckwheat at me going down this. It's kind of like Dave Chappelle. You hear him talk about, like, you know, and they'd be like, Charlie Murphy, or, you know, I'm Rick James, bitch. Like, you know, all the time. Like, got fucking sick of it, where he's just like, I'm going to Africa.
Yeah, I'm leaving. Yeah,
he's
leaving.
Leave
me alone.
Yeah. But so he was like, hey, we got to kill him.
What a unique like suggestion, though, that you're going to kill the character, so that you don't have to do it. And like, why would that even work?
And
like,
then the writers, though, then they do this whole, because this is shortly after, I think, Reagan was shot, because Reagan was shot fairly early on in his presidency, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
So this is around that time, and they really just stuck it to the fucking media on this.
The shooting of Buckwheat, America stunned. Brought to you by Texon. Life goes on, and Texon is there.
If you know, you know. But, like, so they filmed it two ways. The first way they filmed it, they had a special effects dude with squibs on Eddie, and they were like, they were like, okay, well, let's get this other take like without that in case it doesn't pass the censors. And when they got to the editing room, they were like, this is fucking gross. This is like too real. We can't keep the blood on there because it's like way too fucking real. And
that's one thing I noticed too. I was like, they weren't afraid to like use like blood caps and stuff. A lot of times we'll start out live. So when this came out, I was like, dude, I'm surprised they didn't show them like the bullet holes.
They changed it. They changed it because they said it was it was funnier with him, with the like zooms in on his face when he's being shot. You see pop, pop, pop. Like
why is he like going to a limo with security guards? You're right. It had to be a play off of the attempted Ronald Reagan assassination because he's like
no autographs or something like that. Like when he's going in there,
see the gunshot.
And dude, then it just pans to Piscopo, and Piscopo is doing the news anchor shit.
That was the scene just moments ago. To repeat, Buckwheat has been shot.
To a T. That Buckwheat just been shot, and then they keep getting updates. Like they're in the room where they're performing surgery on him, and he's like,
Doctor, excuse me, this is Ted Koppel. Have you had a chance to see the actual footage of Buckwheat as he was shot?
No, I haven't.
Like stops mid-surgery to look at it.
And they even have I forgot what the actress's name is that played Alfalfa.
Oh, I'm hurt and confused, and I don't know what to say. No comment.
That was fucking funny. That was good.
She did great on that too.
Yeah, dude, that was fucking great. But so like again, so they make this a two-parter, and so this is going to be. So then you're going to find out who shot Buckwheat, and then there's going to be a whole story on who shot Buckwheat, and then they do the whole JFK.
Yeah, somebody kills him.
Somebody kills him.
They interview Charlton Heston like at one point in time. And then it looks like he's like. They've got like there's somebody else, man. I'm trying like Ronald Reagan. It looks like he's giving like a press release.
Dude.
Like. They make it this insane thing. The Pope is crying.
They almost didn't air the second one because the second one, they were fine. The network was fine with the Reagan parody, and they were upset with the JFK parody. And like Dick Ebersol is like, we literally have like parodied the current president being an assassination attempt, and you won't let us do JFK. Like they were like, we roast Reagan all the fucking time. Like, let us roast JFK, which is so funny because it's completely opposite now. But like, but so he threatened to quit. He was like, he said he's never done that before, but he was like, I'm going to quit. I'll announce my resignation right now if you guys don't let us air the skit.
Eddie said that?
No, Dick Ebersol.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. And they were like, okay, because this is, I think, this had to be towards the end, maybe one or two Eddie's last seasons. But man, that one apparently goes down. Writers are very proud of that one, and a lot of people talk about that one quite a bit. But I mean, what a run, dude. Only like, 4 years? Really 3.5 if you count the pre-tapes and everything like that. Plus, you had a season cut short with the writer strike. So, I mean, really just 3 seasons, man. But in the middle of this, Shadow, help us out on this one. 48 hours takes place.
Jack, tell me a story.
Fuck you.
Oh, that's one of my favorites.
Yep.
And I know that they took a chance on Eddie. I forgot who actually recommended him for this role, but he was 21 fucking years old.
Yeah, 20 when they started filming it.
Wow.
And so this changed Hollywood. It's like Batman. You change things forever. Because up to this point, a black guy in a movie was just a sidekick.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie was actually written for Eddie to be a sidekick.
Yep.
The way it was written, he was not supposed to have the presence that he did.
Right.
But then when he got into the scenes with Nick Nolte, which was like, 6'3", 6'4", white guy, blonde hair, blue eyes, big name,
racist,
and
in the film,
definitely in that movie,
yeah.
But then Eddie said, I was listening to an interview just recently. I think it was from just 3 or 4 years ago. He said that everybody was like, he stole that scene.
Yep.
He stole that scene. So he just by his charisma and his presence on screen, he took over that movie. Like, he became the star of that movie, and that was something that had never been done by a black actor at that time.
Because, I mean, if you can go back and think, even, your Richard Pryor, Gene Wilder stuff, like, you could say maybe they're co-stars, but Gene Wilder's probably bigger on the marquee back then, in Hollywood. But, dude, that's what I read, too, was like one of the, as soon as they started filming him, because, again, we talked about with the Farley thing, with Farley just being so big, not obviously size-wise, but like he just commands so much attention when he's on stage, and that's what Eddie had. Eddie, it's like if Eddie's on stage for whatever reason, he could be sitting down not doing anything and you're watching him because that's just him, right?
He just has that kind of charisma.
That charisma. At 20 fucking years old, you know what I was doing at 20 years old? Firing off knuckle children in the shower.
You know what he's doing at 45 years old?
Yeah, firing off knuckle children. I'm just American Beauty shower scene every morning.
just that sad, defeated.
He's
just hunched over.
It's not even a noise anymore now. It's just like, it's just defeated.
You can't tell if it's a nut or tears.
Yeah, I'm just like, it's sad. So have me another drink.
So one of the things, one of the scenes in 48 Hours that really caught everybody's attention was the redneck bar scene, where so he goes in and he's not a cop in the movie. He's an imprisoned convict that has information on an escaped convict.
Right.
So Nick Nolte's a cop. He gets him out of prison temporarily to help him catch this guy. Eddie goes into this bar and he's acting like a cop, and all these like redneck guys, it's like a cowboy bar,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they don't like black guys, but he goes in
That's
there
weird.
and starts like
what?
He starts
say what?
He starts like he whips a couple guys' asses and has them up against the wall. And
What the hell kind of cop are you? You know what I am? I'm your worst fucking nightmare, man.
And then he starts like talking shit to everybody.
Well, look, Hoss. You start running a respectable business, and I won't have to come in here and hassle you every night. You know what I mean?
Dude, and again, like it was one of those. I probably haven't seen this movie in maybe over 20 years. We'll definitely be covering that one eventually. If we go through, I can't wait till we cover all the movies we're talking about on here, and then I'm going to splice together a megasode that's like 20 hours of Eddie Murphy's ass being kissed by 2.5 white guys. I don't mean that because Leaf's in a wheelchair. He's half Indian.
No offense taken.
I thought you meant wheelchair.
Yeah, no.
No offense taken.
No.
Half of a white guy.
Right, yeah, man. It's not a big deal. But yeah, man.
This movie was big. This movie was like really big. Like I'm pretty sure it grossed on a budget of $12 million. It grossed $78.9 million and basically solidified Eddie Murphy, like as Chris was saying before, as a powerhouse talent to be looked at for future movies.
They brought him a check for $1 million when he was working at SNL for this movie. Like came in after, I guess, I don't know if he had like some back end shit or if they paid him after whatever deal he took, but they gave him an actual check for $1 million, and everybody in SNL was like, holy shit, like they'd never seen
the guy made $1 million.
Made $1 million. It's called Jump to Conclusions. And,
dude, also shout out Sonny Landham is in this film too as one of the bad guys.
Dude.
Shout out to
someone coming. Good old Indian companion.
Also noticed the guy that played T-Bird in The Crow was also in 48 Hours. He was.
Oh wow.
He was another bad guy.
Damn. Shadow with the deeper cuts.
He's the one that in Commando, Arnold's like,
Remember, Sally, when I promised to kill you last?
That's right, Major. You did.
I lied.
I lied. I can't wait to put that clip in.
So I'm coming day and night. I mean, it's terrific, right?
Again, this is 82. Started filming in 81. He's still on SNL. So he's juggling that. Then he's going to go do in 83, and I think I got the timeline right. I think Trading Places came out before Delirious. But again,
yes, it did.
Full-time schedule at SNL, and I know they work like that's like a half the year gig, but he's cranking out 3 movies if you count Delirious because it was released in theaters. It's fucking insane that, and we'll get to everything else, but it's like, how do you have enough time to do all of this? And how, as somebody that doesn't have a background in this industry, like, is just, I'm sure he had some shitty fucking agents at some point, but it's like, that's fucking wild to me. Like, if I had this money and power at 21, 22, I would have been dead in a ditch by 23.
And he,
and
same. he said he always felt like blessed, but he didn't realize like how quick he was rising to be a star. He just thought that was Hollywood. Like,
yeah, I'm sure,
because he had
that's all he knew.
He had nothing to compare it to.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, like he's going to be like an ultra star, and I want to say he got like a 3-picture deal in the 80s for like $15 million.
Oh, I'm sure. But I mean, back then, that's because we talked about it in Die Hard. I think Bruce Willis got $5 million for one picture, and it was like absurd money that somebody would get paid that much. So I mean, for him to be getting that money, they just knew if Eddie's in it, it's fucking box office, right?
Yeah,
so
people were coming to see it.
But so Trading Places, which we have an entire episode on, be sure to check it out in our archives.
Shout out us, man.
Yeah, man, we did a good job on that one. I still want to hit on this one because, like, of course, as we talked about in the episode,
Whiskey, all you want.
Whiskey,
yeah,
all you want,
all you want, yeah.
One of my favorite lines. Here you go, black guy.
Yeah,
you love booze.
Yep.
You people love them.
But so they got, this one was supposed to be Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder again, and then it was called, I think they called it, I want to say it was maybe Black and White was the name of the movie originally, or something like that, something to that effect. And they fought hard for I guess like Pryor again maybe was going through some things, and then they got Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd, and the whole thought was, hey, Aykroyd's an established name, and we'll put Eddie with him because they're filming this, 48 Hours is either just coming out or about to come out, so they don't
She don't know.
There it is. But so they had no idea so they're thinking like Aykroyd will carry this film and that's fine.
Yeah.
And they get into it, and man, what a great fucking movie this was, and what a great job Eddie does in it.
I can see. I have legs. Oh shit! Look at this, man. I can walk. Jesus.
Like,
this is a fun watch when we covered this. I really enjoyed this one. I laughed so hard.
And still, he's only, what, 21, 22 at this point?
When it comes out, he's 22. So he's filming this at 21, which again is like nuts. Like, I don't. Is it just we forget? Why is he not getting like more flowers and shit like that? Or I just don't. Hollywood's a fucking bitter industry, man. They're never like, you know what? You guys did great. They're like,
you see, man, I knew y'all was man. You ain't jacuzzing nobody.
Eddie, at 20, 21, 22, Eddie is just busting his ass. And I think, now especially we're covering him, it's becoming apparently clear, like, why he, not only was he just a mega talented guy, like, he worked so hard. Like, he was on comedy tours, he was on SNL, like, he was filming, like, movies, just...
breaking necks, stacking checks, and having sex.
He said that he doesn't consider himself a comic. He just considers himself to be an artist. Like,
I mean, whatever works for you, just keep being you.
Yeah.
I mean, what you can call you. I don't care whatever. If I'm a producer, I'm like, I don't give a fuck what you call yourself. Just call yourself here on Monday so we can film it.
Yeah, I mean, you might not call yourself a comic, but he did a comic stand-up in '83 called Delirious.
Ladies and gentlemen, Eddie Murphy.
We touched on a little bit. I guess it came out in August of '83. So
yeah, it would have been after Trading Places.
So after Trading Places, this is where he was wearing the kind of bluish purple leather suit.
This is the red suit.
This is the red one.
This is the red suit. Yeah.
Okay, so
I'm not gonna lie to you, Shedwick. I remember it being the opposite way too.
Yeah, I went back and watched it.
I was
definitely
like,
red because I actually had to buy the fucking DVD because all the stand up shit you can find online is cut. There's certain parts cut out of it.
Maybe I'm just thinking raw equals red.
Well, dude, that was one of the things I had in my notes. One of the things I had in my notes is this should have been called Raw, and the next one should have been called Delirious because like this is as raw as you get as far as the stand-up routine goes. And I guess we'll go ahead and jump into it since we already covered Trading Places.
We did.
Delirious is the stand-up, and this stand-up routine is just a collection of jokes and impressions that seemingly doesn't connect at all. But like, so you go to who I consider the greatest of all time, Dave Chappelle, as far as stand-up goes, because that dude will take you on a connected journey through an entire, and he can write. I mean, how many stand-up routines did he write in like 2 or 3 in 1 year that are honed and perfect and filmed? Like, that's just impossible. That's why I consider him the GOAT.
He's a storyteller.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so like Eddie, and it kind of reminds me of like what I thought stand-up was going to be, or thought it would be like when I was younger, and I'm like, okay, I can do like a handful of impressions. Can I put a routine together based off this handful of impressions, which every terrible comic does, and I would have been a terrible comic if I had done it. I just decided to quit and give up on my dreams. But he just,
here we are.
And here we are. But he takes all these impressions, but his impressions, and this was another thing I think that Piscopo, they said this may have caused a rift between them too. Piscopo was a pretty good impressionist, but he had to work at it. So he was like watching tape, working on mannerisms and shit. Eddie would see some dude once, have it down, and have the mannerisms down like 10. And it's like, this just God-given talent. You can't fucking teach that. But so I have some notes here for Delirious, and I'll kind of go through just periodically these jokes on here, and I will put clips in as we can. But the old Bus Boys opening up this thing, which the first thought I had was when it cuts after the band's opening up and then it's like Eddie on stage, all the band's equipment's been like fucking completely cleared off the stage, and I was like, God damn it, what a logistical nightmare. Like the crowd had to sit there for 30 minutes while they're unloading the band's shit and people being rushed to do it. And then I was like, why don't you just leave the instruments out there? And then realize like I'm like 10 minutes into the stand-up, and I'm like, Chris, stop bitching and rewind it and actually pay attention to this. Like in my brain, I'm like, I had to pack up the goddamn drums in 10 minutes. Like,
well, I'll tell you why they couldn't leave it up there, because he also was the first person that used the stage.
The entire stage.
Yeah, so before that, it was always just somebody sitting on a stool or standing behind a microphone stand. He got the microphone and walked back and forth the whole time.
But you got like a big audience. You can. That's what you should do.
Well, and also, he didn't want gay people looking at his ass.
So if they do see it, it's quick and you switch it. They don't get no long stare at your shit.
He did say that. He did say that. And like we talked about earlier, that there's some derogatory terms that were just sprinkled liberally in this one,
and some dated terms too.
Yeah,
or dated thoughts, I guess.
Yeah,
because he's like, I give gay people a hard time. Like I joke about them all the time, but they're fine. You can hang out with a gay guy. You can have you can play tennis with a gay guy.
Really? Just after the game, you say, I'm gonna go get a beer. What you gonna do? Think I'll go suck somebody's dick? Well, I'll see you later.
But then he's talking about he starts talking about AIDS.
Yeah,
and this is 83, right? So
we had no idea.
Yeah, he's like that shit worries me, man, because your girl can go out, they have gay friends. They say they're the best friends. They can hang out because they're not looking for sex from you. You're not looking for sex from them. Like, but you go out and start dancing, and a gay dude kisses your wife on the lips.
Get home with their husband, and like 5 years later, Mr. Johnson, you have AIDS. He goes, AIDS? Well, I'm not a homosexual. Sure, you're not a homosexual.
You're not. Dude. I mean, he starts off with the slurs flying, and then he just goes through these impressions.
Yeah,
and he's I pitted a food. He does a little Mr. T out of the gate.
Dude.
Like, can you imagine? It again, like I said, it's a stupid. It's a stupid fucking premise. It's what if Mr. T's gay?
Yeah. Do you know it, Leaf? Do you know the joke?
Yeah.
I watched it before the podcast. Yeah, I hadn't watched Delirious in maybe ever.
Funny because he takes it in a different direction. You think that Mr. T would be the gay aggressor.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
But he's like,
now come on over here and fuck me up the ass.
So you kind of like that,
dude. And this is like a lot of people forget about Mr. T. Like this is like shredded A-team Mr. T. Like we're talking
coming off
like
WrestleMania, Mr. T. Like everything blockbuster, gangbusters, Mr. T. Like it's just funny that he because he hits back on this in Raw later on, but he hits on this impression. It just goes off. It starts off out of the gate, and again, like if you write these premise down on paper, it's fucking stupid.
Yeah,
it's the hey, what if Mr. T was gay? But it's like no, like but when you have Eddie Murphy do it with that impression, that was fucking spot on.
It's just so
like
it's so good.
It's just so fucking good. And then he does a gag about 18-year-old people not being able to fuck because they don't know what they're doing. Like you can't even control your own dick. You get a boner in class or whatever. And I was like, well, I mean, Gibbs had a way around that one. I do believe in a previous episode.
Sure did.
You just gotta use it to your advantage, man.
Yeah, just be like, I can't stand up. I have an erection. Straight to your fucking female teacher.
And she just moved on.
And she's like, okay.
Her.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we'll go to someone else.
You think she was like Miss Davis on Varsity Blues?
I hope so.
Come on, y'all, say it.
So then he goes off into this tangent because he's talking about comedians, and I mean a lot of this shit. Even both of these, me and Chadwick kind of talked about this. Like these stand-ups are very similar, but like he's talking about singers, get more pussy than comedians, and like he's talking about the bus boys who I referenced earlier. They get those dudes be fucking, they get pussy and all this shit, and he segues to Mick Jagger.
Mick Jagger's lips so big, black people be going, you got some big ass lips.
That shit fucking floored me, man. I was like, God damn, like.
So this little segment here where he talks about singers, singers getting pussy. He does impressions of, let's see, he does
Michael Jackson.
Does Michael Jackson. He does Elvis.
James
Brown, and who's the other one?
I think that's it. I thought he ended with James Brown, but I could be wrong.
He ends. I think there was another one in there somewhere, but the fucking range on this guy, because you're going from Michael Jackson to Elvis Presley.
I'll tell you right now, the Michael Jackson was solid. The Elvis Presley was insane.
I've traveled each and every byway.
Yeah,
like that sounded just like Elvis Presley.
He even changes like the pronunciation of words.
I mean, he can get so deep, like Elvis, that deep bassy or whatever. But I was like, God damn, like that sounds just like Elvis.
He's like, Elvis couldn't even act. They put him in movies. Sing your lines. Elvis, we got to win this race. We got to win this race.
Yeah. So I mean, like I think too. As much as I say that, because again, look at it on paper. Like, okay, Elvis Presley sucked at singing or sucked at acting, so he just had to sing all his lines. Like, it's a dumb premise. But when Eddie does it and it's got that voice behind it, watch the crowd. What they do, man. They lost their fucking mind.
Stevie Wonder was the other one.
Oh, yeah, Stevie Wonder, which we kind of already hit on. But yeah, man. And then he does his little James Brown. And then this was my favorite one, where he's like doing James Brown, and he's like, none of it's audible.
Tell it about now. Bam said, yeah. To you. Yeah. Tell it about now. Yeah. Bam be going, what the fuck is James talking about, man?
Like the band had no idea
whatever it was. It's important. James, he always said,
yeah. Ow. Like he's doing that whole shit the entire time. That James Brown one was that was written well and was like performed to a T. Because I mean, anybody that watched James Brown, you thought the same shit. We didn't know what he was saying.
No.
Yeah. Like that's, but yeah, again, I have to go back to that fucking James Brown thing, or the Elvis impression though. That was the one that like floored me on this one, where I was like, holy shit, man.
Yeah, it was really good.
He does that. It's better if you watch it, like you can listen to it. I couldn't find the video, so I just listened to little.
I found the video partially on YouTube. I got a DVD on the way that I'll rip and render. So if you guys want to see the full thing, good fucking luck.
Yeah, I did. But I remember seeing it. I must have watched it quite a bit when I was younger, because when he was doing the Elvis bit and he's talking about like him walking out and he's fat as shit, whatever.
Yeah.
Like I could see him walking out there. Like, he's like sticking his ass out like Donald Duck walking across there, but then he breaks into this fucking beautiful Elvis impersonation.
Yeah, dude, it's just so fucking good, man.
But I think he actually wanted to be a singer.
I do too,
because he's so good at comedy. But like the range was there, but like to your point earlier, him side by side with Stevie, I think maybe the power just wasn't there.
I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, he would have been box office, and he did. You know, we'll get into it later.
Let's just go ahead. The thing is, like, he did record a couple songs. He did one, I think maybe like 2020 or 2019 with Snoop Dogg that I didn't even know about. I still haven't listened to it, but it flopped as well. I think the problem is people expect Eddie to be funny. So if he recorded an album like Adam Sandler did, people would have loved it. But you take Eddie Murphy, who is a comedic genius, whether like he sees himself as that or not, and he tries to release like a serious song. People are like, they're like Angela on The Office when Andy gives her the rose. She's like,
what am I supposed to do with this?
I mean, but also we say that Party All the Time hit number 2 on the fucking charts, so it's not that one. That one was not a flop, but that one was also
a week or for a day.
I don't know, but it doesn't matter. You hit number 2 or number 1 on the charts.
Yeah, it was
fucking good,
it was
dude.
A popular song. In fact, hanging out with my gaming buddies who are younger than I am, didn't know that was Eddie Murphy. Like,
really?
They heard the song before, they had no clue it was Eddie Murphy, and they were like, because one of my friends was like, "Wait a minute." I was like, "Oh, you're an Eddie Murphy fan, huh?" And he was just like, "What?" And I was like, "That song you're singing, dude." I was like,
"Yeah, dude,
that's Eddie Murphy." He was like, "What?" Funny story about that song. Right? Yeah. Funny story about that song though. He actually missed out on the "We Are the World" music video and song. Eddie Murphy did. Yeah, he actually turned it down. And evidently, this, as the story goes, Stevie Wonder, he was at Stevie Wonder's studio, and Stevie was just like, "Hey, man, you want to come over? Like, we're doing this thing." And Eddie Murphy was like, "Nah, man, I'm recording Party All the Time. Like, I don't want to be a part of all of these
legendary artists. Yeah,
legendary artists." And so he could have been on that song, but he said he turned it down. So
he's like, "No, man, I'm hanging out with Rick James in a coke-fueled, prostitute-filled studio right now. I'll stick with this."
No,
me and my brother.
Yeah, he's like, no, Stevie, fuck your couch.
Yeah.
Fuck your couch, nigga. Buy another one, you rich motherfucker. Fuck your couch, nigga. Fuck your couch. Darkness is.
He was, dude.
Charlie Murphy.
He said afterwards he realized he was an idiot. He was just like, I felt like such a moron. Like after the song came out, he could have been part of that. All of those artists, man. So
we'll go back to his stand-up to finish this one off, because this will bring part 1 to a close. But when he starts mentioning childhood stories, anytime he'd say Charlie, I'd always fucking smile. I mean, obviously Charlie Murphy not with us anymore, but I was like, all right, you know who he is now, like Charlie. Yeah. Back then you probably didn't, but dude.
So I always thought, like, I guess you're about to tell a story about his dad being drunk.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But anyway, he does this, which I didn't know. I knew his dad had passed away, but I never put 2 and 2 together that this was just a skit.
Well, no, it was his stepdad.
Okay, so he's making fun of his stepdad.
His stepdad, I think his name was Vernon.
Because right before this
Vernon
story,
T.
he does have this bathtub story that's funny as shit, and it just can't do justice with clips. But it's like him and Charlie in the bathtub, and shoves like a army man up his ass in the cave or something, and then he ends up, Charlie says there's a big like brown shark because Charlie's shit in the bathtub or something, like,
and he's holding it.
He's holding the shit like this, like.
See my big brother sitting in the bathroom with a piece of shit in his hand in the tub? I was laying in the bottom of the water with blood gushing out my eye.
There's this, dude. It's right before he goes to the drunken dad thing, which I guess that was just something people knew about, because as soon as he starts doing it, people start like fucking cheering a little bit, and they definitely do on Raw. As soon as he starts doing the drunk dad, there's people that cheer. But we were talking about earlier, that whole shit where he's like edgy, like that slur that he has when he's doing all that shit. God fucking damn it!
It's so funny.
Talking about the dog shitting in the house.
It's like motherfucking furniture in there. I went in last week to watch the fights. I said, fuck it, I put my drink on top of it, Eddie.
You don't care. You don't take care of the dog, Edgy.
Yeah.
Shit's all over the house.
And he's just like talking, just going through like all these like obscure like scenarios and shit of like his drunk dad.
So he talks about not in the stand up, but later on in an interview, his stepdad really did have a drinking problem. It wasn't like all the time. He wasn't always drunk. It was just when he did drink, he would always get like
drink excess.
Yeah, just belligerent like that. When Delirious came out and his stepdad saw that, he actually stopped drinking because of the jokes.
I imagine he was
sucks, or is it good? I mean,
booze of the week. We're hypocrites on drinking. So.
Yeah, but we're not fucking berating everybody.
Hey, Edgy, I haven't done this drink.
You're married to a Bigfoot.
We're not berating everybody. Just wait for part 2.
Just wait for part 2. Edgy. But yeah, like Chadwick said, he got this skit again. Go find it. There's like bits and pieces you can find. I'll put as many clips as I can. And he ends with this joke because he asks if there's any kids in the crowd. And then there's apparently somebody thought it was a good idea to take. And he was like, man, y'all thought I was going to do some buckwheat and some shit. And then I'm just up here talking about fucking. And like, he's like, I'll tell you a joke you can like tell like your people in school. And it's this stupid joke where he says there's a bear and a rabbit. And they're just in the woods and they're about to take a shit. The bear looks over at the rabbit and is like, hey.
You have problems with shit sticking to your fur? And the rabbit says no. So the bear wiped his ass with the rabbit.
That's a joke. And
see, I'm almost positive my dad told me that joke.
Dude probably got it off this
he
fucking
probably
stand-up
did.
thing, man. Dude, but it's funny as
so
shit,
good.
man. But that's going to wrap up our part 1 on this, guys. So we'll do a quick over to our Norm Macdonald. But tune in next week. We're going to have part 2. So with that is our Norm Macdonald clip of the week.
Talk show host Ricky Lake has announced that she will finally publicly apologize for her role in a destructive anti-fur demonstration. Then she will eat a huge can of frosting.
She said